Hello everybody, and welcome to the first episode of How to Engie, the basics of Engineer. In this episode, we'll be looking at the proper mindset you should have while playing as the Engineer class, and proper building placement. And before we begin, I just want to remind you that this series isn't trying to copy Dane's Engineering 101 series. This series is just to help newer Engies get better at Engineer quickly, and to get creative with the info and tips I'm going to give you. With that out of the way, let's get started. Many TF2 players tend to stray away from Engineer due to playing Engineer with the completely wrong mindset. From what I've seen and from what I've experienced myself, most Engies believe that they have to keep all their buildings up no matter what, and if any of them go down, they're doing a terrible job. This isn't the case. As an Engineer, you have to understand that all of your buildings are just distractions that also help your team. If they go down, and they're also doing their job by supplying health and ammo to teammates, getting people to the front lines, and defending the objective and flanks, then you're doing your job as an Engineer. It's all about setting up again in a safe place and moving your buildings back once you're comfortable with their upgrade state. You might be asking, but what if my buildings are not actually helping my team and just keep going down? And that's a great question. If this seems to be the case, then you need to work on your building placement. Building placement is arguably the most important skill to master in playing Engineer. Now, I'm not expecting you to master it right now, but you should get a good idea of what proper building placement looks like. Hey there! So, we're going to go over building placement, but I was originally going to have clips of me doing the building placement and then just explain them, but I think it's best for me to do it live, so I just made an empty map. I just made a server on Swiftwater because this is perfect. This can go over all the different places that are great for buildings. I think first we'll focus on the Sentry because I think all of you want to know about the Sentry. So, I'm going to ask you a question. Should we, when we have a Sentry, because the Sentry's job is to protect the objective, should we build a Sentry right here? You know, it can get people in the spawn, it can cover the objective, right? Or should we have a Sentry here? Here, it's not going to really focus anyone in the spawn. You can still get the objective. The people over there can get it. Oh no. Here's the thing. You want it up here. Never, ever, ever, ever here. The year it's going to go down because these things have health. Say, I don't know, like a soldier comes out, it go boom, 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 down. It's down. It's not going to stay up. Always have it at a high elevation if possible. Now, sometimes high elevations are good, but I'm not going to get into that. Again, this is about simplicity and getting creative. Find a high spot. If you can find a high spot, that is amazing because then it covers more ground than if it were, say, over here, right? Well, anyone over there, kind of hard to get to, or anyone over just over here. If it's up higher, it can cover a lot more area. Because remember, it's a bubble. It's not a dome, it's a bubble. It gets anyone over there, whatever, wherever. Higher elevation is key for sentries, but it's not necessary. Your Sentry can still be effective if it's, say, over here. Yes, people can get over here, but if you want to surprise things, say they're like pushing their cart, getting it up, boom, 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 they're dead. Okay? Albeit this is more or less like a surprise Sentry. It's not going to do you much good in the long run. You want to make sure your Sentry is doing its job for the longest amount of time possible, hence why I recommend the wrench. But if you are newer, I would honestly recommend the Jag, because I'm not going to expect you to keep your Sentry up. I've been playing this class for over 6 years and over 1,000 hours, plus I play comp. So I don't expect you to play at the level that I play. Also, I'm not saying I'm the best, there's much better engineers than me. But let's say this is another key point with Sentries. Remember how I said objectives? The Sentry should cover objectives. Say this thing is covering some of these objectives, right? Say the enemy comes in, boom, you know, the Sentry's gonna get him. But let's say there's two engineers. Say the other engineer's built up here. Do not build beside him, never build beside another Sentry, easy to take both out. Take your Sentry and move it maybe over over here or something. Somewhere where it covers a flank, because flanks are a big thing. Scouts, if you didn't know, engineer counters scouts. If you play engineer, scouts are gonna be easy killings, dude. Good for I guess farming strangers. Scouts are great when you're playing engineer, but scouts are a flank class. If a scout comes over here, they're fucked. If they try to peek it, you can take your Wrangler. I would recommend using the Wrangler a lot of the time. It's honestly the most useful out of all of the secondaries. Just shoot a few rockets. Shoot it. Scout is like a fly when you're playing engineer. You're like a god. Kind of. So if an engineer is covering the objective, cover flanks. You don't need two engineers covering the objective. Always cover the flanks. That's just the job of the sentry. If you're over here might be somewhere perfect. If you can find a spot that covers both a flank and the objective, you have found a damn near perfect sentry spot. Here is an almost perfect sentry spot. Covers the objective, covers the flank. So, say they move up. Boom, boom, boom. Over here, another great thing about higher elevation. I just want to drill this in your heads and then we'll go on to dispensers. Here is beautiful. You got this covered. With the Wrangler, you got this flank covered. You got this area up here covered. You've got this place here covered. With the Sentry, it's best to cover as many places as possible. Now, that's not always going to happen. Sometimes you've got to get creative. But try to find spots where you cover the most places as possible of objectives, flanks, maybe little areas where the enemy team can hide out and try to build up. If you can do that, you're going to stay up for a lot longer. Now, when it comes to dispensers, these things are really easy. I really only have to go over one thing. Have them behind cover, but really close to your team. Your team's fighting here. Your team can just shoot, bang, bop, boop, and then can come back for health and ammo. Keep on fighting. It's so good. It's great. It's amazing. Always have them behind cover, but do not have it somewhere like this. Always have it by kind of a corner. If you can find a corner, that's amazing. Over here, your team can still fight. Over here, your team has to come way out of combat to fight, or have their heads up here. Boom, they're dead to a sniper. So, that was dispensers. Now on to teleporters, which teleporters are actually the most important tool or important building in the engineer's arsenal. Dispensers, these things give health and ammo. You know what else gives health and ammo? Health, ammo. Health can also be given by medics, obviously, and even good old heavies with their sandwiches, right? So dispensers aren't like a necessity. Sentries. I know the most fun of all the buildings. Everyone loves their sentries, but these things, they're more or less just helpful for the fact that, I mean, they never miss. They have a really high damage output. So they're just helpful, but they're not a necessity because your teammates can also defend. So say your sentry, your dispenser goes down, the one building that has almost like a power that only engineer has and only engineer alone has that no other class can do is teleport. Get your teammates to the front lines. This spot here, any spot where it's hard to find your teleporter, is the best spot. Here, if a spy comes running up, they might not see it. They might, but they might also not. You just kind of gotta hope. But make sure your teleporter is farthest behind. That might sound counterintuitive, but it's because it's so important. You don't want the enemy finding it. And now, inevitably, they probably will. But if you can get about 5 to 10 teleports out of this thing, you are good as gold. So that about covers all the different buildings and the building placements. So let's go over it super fast again. Sentries. Higher elevation is best, not always necessary. Any place where the enemy team can't instantly destroy it. Dispensers. by corners, but also behind walls, like this. And teleporters always should be farther back than any other building and behind cover as well. Hard to find. Alright, I think that about wraps it up. I hope you enjoyed, and any suggestions for my next video? This one, I don't know how good it is. Hopefully it's good. None of this part was scripted. Entirely me just explaining it. Now next episode I will go over some weapons and also some DM skills, how to improve your DM skills and where each weapon comes into play. So I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next video. Adios.
He's an engineer, he's building here. You can never run from a Sentry gun. Cower in fear to wear his beautiful beard. He's got a beard, you got a